I don't understand how we've been talking about the divide between Trump, OG MAGA, and the MAGA movement, but it seems like America First has turned into America Only in the MAGA movement. When you've got people like Tucker Carlson, um, spouting off his things, and I think we talk about America First, and we need to keep in mind that we live in a world full of bad hombres, and the the Iranian regime, if that fell, and I'm not saying boots on the ground. I deployed to Iraq twice. I think this is a totally different situation than Iraq, and anybody who thinks differently probably not thinking clearly about it. Um,
Why do you think?
different how?
Yeah,
Totally different than Iraq.
yeah.
Well,
I'm not saying we couldn't come up with explanations, but we want to hear yours.
Sure. Yeah, my explanation for why. First off, I think the Iranian regime is has much more. How do I phrase this? They have their hands in a lot more pots than Saddam's regime did. Saddam was was a local dictator. With his sons, they were psychopaths, but it wasn't like the Ba'ath Party wasn't a religious movement. It wasn't a movement that had legs outside of Iraq all that much. Iran is involved in Syria. They're involved with the Muslim Brotherhood movements in North Africa. They're involved with Hamas, Hezbollah.
So what's the implication of that?
Doesn't that make it more dangerous?
Yeah. What's the implication of that?
For sure. No, for sure. But I think people are trying to compare U.S. involvement in the potential, in helping Israel and Iran. I think people are trying to compare that to getting into the Iraq war because of weapons of mass destruction and then getting involved in a quagmire of regime change and occupation for 20 years. That's what I think, where I think people are trying to go with that comparison.
Well, because I think all those groups you just mentioned will have a vested interest in the outcome of what comes next. And that's just like they did in Iraq, right? It wasn't the Iraqis that caused us trouble. It was the Iranians and everyone else that funneled in to try to seize control of a vacuum. So the question is, all the groups you just mentioned, all the religious sects that are there are going to scramble for control. And who's the adult that keeps the lid on it?
I think Iran has some small r Republican roots. And if you got rid of the Shia overlay, I think the people of Iran would be okay.
That's the hope. I mean, that's the hope, but that's the same exact language that George W. Bush's team used. Literally almost verbatim.
Well, hopefully we have some lessons learned. Hopefully we have some lessons learned there. Okay.
I will say, Mark brought this up at the beginning, just so when Director Gabbard testified in March of 2025, she made it very clear, very publicly, and it's going around now, that that Iran did not have, not only did they not have it, but the intel, the IC community did not believe that they were on a path to developing a nuke. And somehow that bridge is going to have to get crossed, because you can't, Josh, you brought up the weapon, the WMD, with that as a backdrop. And I agree with your assessment, just so we're clear. But I think that there's going to be a lot of people who say, hey, you guys blew it in Iraq with selling everyone on WMD. And you have a director 3 months ago saying that they're not doing this. What's changed? Right? Because there's two things. The bind that I think they're in now is either one, the intel was wrong, or you're not being completely straight with what the threat is now. So I think that they're going to have to explain that threat a little bit more, because I think there is enough people with Iraq in the back of their head saying, we played this game once before and it didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
It's all so confusing. I mean, whether or not Saddam was on the way to some sort of weapon of mass destruction that was less than nuclear, whether he had them and then they moved them, a la, Russia and Syria, circa 2011. I mean, I remember I had some officers when I was deployed, with the Marines who, some battalion level officers who was like, yeah, we found the storehouses, and then poof, nothing ever happened, and now it's all, myth and fable, and just a, sort of used as the great American tall tale of the 21st century.
Yep.
And we've had some really spotty, particularly during the Obama administration too. We've had some really, really, really poorly thought out interventions. Libya.
Well, and by the way, at least in Iraq, from when Cheney gave that speech right after, I think it was the end of August at the Veterans of Foreign Wars convention, I think it was in Nashville, until it started in that, the country debated that entire fall of 2022. Should we do this? This is about 48 hours of debate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Joshua, thank you.
Good pull, Dan.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.